So just to be clear, good evening, everyone. Those that I haven't said hello to or met yet, I'm Peter from Little Havens, and I'm really pleased to be able to join you when the technology allows. It's great fun. I'm no stranger to Rotary meetings, but this is a new opportunity doing the kind of video conferencing. So hopefully this will work out. But just so I understand who we've got online, we've got Phil, Frank, Jason, Steve, Claire, Steph, Sharon, and did I hear Lisa as well?
Lisa will be, but she can't get on at the moment.
Right, but all those other people I just mentioned, hopefully you guys are all listening, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, and Janice.
And Janice.
Janice is in the background, yeah.
Okay. So I'll just carry on, Phil, and unless for whatever reason anyone can't hear me, or if there's something, just feel free to interrupt. I don't have a problem with that, because I realise that this is a kind of only the third or fourth meeting you've had in this way, so I know there'll be a few teething problems with technology, and I'm sure people speaking over each other. Absolutely. So, and I want to give you guys the opportunity as well to talk, but there's actually some questions I've got for you as a club, because I'd love to find out a bit more about how you work and you know, what your understanding of what Little Havens is and hospice care, because I know Frank and Phil and Janice came down to Little Havens back in June. So what I'm interested to know, first of all, other than Frank and Janice and Phil, has anyone else had the opportunity to visit Little Havens before?
No.
Yes.
Who was that who said yes?
Oh, Steve's been there, right.
Steve, okay, right. So, for those of you that don't know, because I'm conscious that I know Jason, I think, is out in Rochford, but I'm assuming everyone else is in the Thurrock area. Let's get everyone overseas or in exotic places, and Thurrock and Rochford join us in the next few minutes.
Steve, where are you living?
Canby.
Canby.
Okay, well, you'll be familiar, Steve, with Canby. Can I ask, Steve, what your knowledge of Little Havens was? You've been to see it?
I do a monthly sponsorship to you guys.
Oh, great.
I've done for a number of years. So
is that our weekly draw, or you give a regular sum?
As well as a donation as well.
Oh, bless you! And so you've physically been down to the hospice, have you?
I have, yeah. Yeah, it was a while ago now.
Right. Did you have the opportunity to look around the hospice?
No, we had a bit of a meet and greet session.
Oh, okay. No, that's cool. So you'll have some idea of Little Havens as being a family home as opposed to a hospital, because that's one thing that I'm sure Phil and Janice and Frank will bear testament to, is that what Little Havens isn't is a hospital. But for those of you that don't know, just before we talk about the detail...
Just say hello to Lisa. She's just come online.
Hello, Lisa.
Oh, sorry I'm late.
That's all right. Nice to meet you. I don't think we've met before. I'm Peter from Little Havens.
Hello.
And that's a lovely picture on your wall behind you.
That's my daughter.
Okay, so I was just explaining, Lisa, that a little bit about the hospice and where we are and my role. But for those of you that don't know, Little Havens, just to orientate you all, is just off the A127 in Thundersley. If you're coming from the M25 direction, straight down the A127 to the Rayleigh Weir underpass, except you don't go round, you go round the roundabout as if you're heading up towards Hadley. We're 2 or 3 minutes drive from Thundersley, so 5 minutes outside of Southend.
I know exactly where you are. You're down Dorset Road.
We are. Where are you from then, Lisa?
Well, I just know it from, I go to the hairdressers in Leigh-on-Sea. I live in Stamford-on-Hope. I only live a couple of minutes up the road from Janice and Phil. I go to the hairdressers in Leigh-on-Sea.
Right.
And if I want to shoot over to Macron the way back home from there, I cut down Dorset Road.
And you drive past us?
Yeah, I've driven past it many times.
Indeed. So what I was sharing with the other folks, Lisa, is that what Little Havens isn't is a hospital. We're a family home, and hospice care, as I'm sure you guys are aware, because it's the same whether it's a children's hospice or whether it's an adult hospice, rather like your own St Luke's, which is the adult hospice for your area, is all about caring for not just the child in the case of a children's hospice, Little Havens, but about supporting the family as a whole. So this is about mum, dad, nan, granddad, the siblings, those children that so often feel neglected and left out. We've been open since 1998. Our site in Thurrock opened in March 98. In the succeeding 18 years, we've supported over 1,400 families from across Essex. Although the hospice is physically based in the south of the county, our reach is county-wide. We also provide hospice at home and family care for children in their own home, as well as a day stay facility and as well as inpatient care at Littlehaven. So I guess the point I'm making is that whether you live in Romford, Stamford, Braintree, Witham, Chelmsford or Colchester or Clacton, or down in the south in South or Basildon, Littlehaven's is your local children's hospice, and the care that we provide is across the county. What I'd like to do before I talk too much more about what we do is I think the most effective way to illustrate the wonderful work that Littlehaven's does, apart from actually coming down and seeing the hospice yourself, is I want to play you a short film that Phil and I were able just to check that we had online. It is about 5 minutes. It's quite an emotional film, but it's also really inspiring. So I would encourage you to stick with it. You're going to hear from a lady called Liz, whose daughter Ava, and this is giving you a cue, Phil, almost to get the video ready to start. You're going to hear from Liz, who will talk about the care that the family received, her daughter Ava, her husband, and also her other son George, and the fact that they come to Littlehaven's for respite. So if we're able to, Phil, to go to the video now.
Yeah, sure. Bear with me 2 seconds and we'll get that up. Yeah, no problem.
And then we'll come back and have a chat afterwards.
Yep.
Hopefully you can all hear this and see this.
I'm Ava's mum. Ava's nearly 7 and we've been coming to Littlehaven since the beginning of 2010. I can still remember now the looks on the face of the consultant as he came in, the nurse's face, the cracks on the wall, everything about that moment of diagnosis is in my brain like a tattoo. And they came and said that Ava had hydrocephalus, which is the dangerous build-up of fluid in the brain. She had damage throughout every section of her brain. And we were rushed to Great Ormond Street for emergency surgery. Those early days were just like a blur, but a horrendous nightmare that you don't wake up from. And when you have a child that precious, the bond is immediate. And then he comes and tells you that they're not the perfect child that you thought that they were having. But the more they tell you, the stronger that bond becomes and the more you love them. And so with every bit of bad news today, the more we wanted to make it better for her. I felt huge guilt, and because of that, I wanted to do everything myself. I didn't want any help from anybody else. I wanted to make it up to her, and I wanted to make it better. But the reality is you can't be everything. And George grew up overnight because he had to. He just turned 3 when we had Ava. I look back at photos of him now at that age and the photos within that first year. I don't remember. In that first year, he was lost. That initial year, she was medically faring quite well, but then seizures took over her life and she fitted nearly every day, day and night. And we were just completely lost in a world that we didn't understand anymore. It was at that point that we started fighting to get her back that we came to Littlehaven. Immediately, all my fears about the kind of place it would be were eradicated. Within minutes, I expected it to be sad and there to be lots of really sick, poorly children with parents crying and it to be a really sad place. But we came in to laugh, and that's generally what we have every time we're here. It's amazing. It's not about dying. What we've come to see is that Littlehaven's is for us, it's about living. It gives them a life. the stuff that they've got here, it's like Disneyland for over. The music therapy, the sensory room, the swimming, all the things that she loves to do are here at her fingertips. It's Ava's world. Those reactions, those days, those smiles, those laughs. Every time I see that on her, I feel like I've won the lottery. And it's that feeling every time. The other side is that we all come for a holiday for George. We come and we stay as a family and we laugh, we play, and we go swimming, and he goes on the trampoline and in the ball pub. And that's how he sees it. You call me fool. Don't you know that comforting thing for us since we're coming here is that actually life does go on. And the people here are like a comfort blanket. They care for her how we would care for her. And that's the difference between here and the hospital. That they see Ava for the beautiful little girl that she is, not the medical file. Of all the things people do, the crazy things people do to fundraise, to raise money for something like this, it means an incredible amount. I dread to think where we would be without this family here. We couldn't keep going. Without them, we wouldn't be a family. Because we had fallen apart before we came here. And little like put you back together and dust you down, the energy to carry on. And that's what Little Havens does. It gives us magical moments and memories. And we'll have those forever.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Phil.
Yep. Let's get back into that.
Well, I hope, folks, that you managed to hear that. I was getting a bit of picture breakup and audio breakup my end. I don't know how that came across to everybody else. Were you able to see and hear that okay, folks?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you for watching it. And I would encourage you all, because I think Phil has already sent the link to that film, which is freely available along with some wonderful clips on YouTube. So when you get a chance, if you go onto YouTube and just put Little Havens film in, you'll see that video and you'll be able to watch it at your leisure and hear the interview, because it's wonderful to hear Liz speaking about the care of the family and what Little Havens does. But I think what she's saying encapsulates really what Little Havens is about, is that when a child comes through the door of Little Havens, what we don't see is the medical file. We see the child, and those children expect and deserve a childhood. So they come to laugh, they come to have fun, they come to play, they come to cry and just be however they want to be. Because although Little Havens is very much about laughter and love and life and living, there are also moments of great challenge and difficulty and emotion and sadness. So I guess a bit like life itself. And we give those families the space and the permission to be however they want to be. But the beauty is that they can come and be a family together and take for granted all the things that you and I might reasonably expect to do with our children or our grandchildren, which is sitting and watching a film, going for a walk, doing all the fun things that we do with our families. But it's just not possible for our families when they're at home, because looking after someone who's life limited, who's seriously ill, is 24/7, 7 days a week, physically and emotionally, spiritually draining. And the care that we provide is based on holistic principles. It recognises that we are, you and I and our children too, are physical, emotional and spiritual beings. So we're able to meet the physical needs, which in the case of hospice care is not treating to cure, sadly. We can't do that, but it's about pain relief and symptom control. But it's also meeting those emotional needs. So when those teenagers that come to us are living with their underlying condition, but they're also falling out with mum and dad, they're having arguments with their younger brothers and sister, there's hormones raging, there's relationship difficulties, there's homework to be done, and there's all the angst that comes with being a teenager, as well as having to deal with their condition. We're able to meet those needs emotionally and spiritually too. Some of those families are asking some of the bigger questions, particularly when they come to end-of-life care. Now, a popular misconception that people often do have about hospices is that they're places where people go right at the end of their lives to die. And Little Havens is a place full of really sick children with parents crying. Well, the reality is, as Phil and Frank and Janice, I'm sure, will attest to, is that when you come to Little Havens, you walk into laughter. And that's what Liz said in the film. And within minutes, we create this environment and world that the children just feel relaxed and happy in. But we also give them the opportunity to cry or to express whatever emotions they feel on that moment. And that's really important. So hospice care, in the words of Dame Sisley Saunders, which one or two of you might recognise that name, she was the founder of the modern hospice movement back in the 60s. She said that each of us matter every day of our lives, up to and including the very last moment, so our last breath, the day that we die. And that's what we subscribe to at Little Havens. So whether we care for a child, a baby, because the care that we provide is from 0 right up to 19, whether it's for a few hours or a few days, or whether it's months or years, every life and every child is precious. So although end-of-life care is a very important part of what we do, folks, it's by no means all that hospices do. Many of our children have been coming to Little Havens for years. And I know Liz and her daughter Ava have been coming since 2010, over the last 6 years. And I know families personally that are still being supported by Little Havens 8, 9, 10 years or more after diagnosis. And that's something to celebrate because of the care that we're able to provide. People are living far longer than ever before. And it is about giving those children and those families the opportunity to live a normal life as teenagers or younger children and do the things that they enjoy and that is fun for them. So I'm happy, there's some more bits and pieces I want to share with you, but I'm happy at this stage, because I'm conscious I've spoken a bit, and I just want to check in with you guys that you're hearing all of that so far. Is there anything on the video or anything that I've said so far that anyone would like to come back and ask me about?
I think that's really great information, Peter. One question, if I could ask.
Yes, please do.
From a finance point of view, does Little Havens run very similar to places like St Luke's? So you get a small donation, government, and then the rest of it is all fundraising. Okay.
Yeah, in a word, and I don't like to quote too much finance and statistics, because actually what people respond to are those emotional stories and the video that you saw. But actually it is important that people know the numbers and the reality of what we have to raise. Now, the bottom line is, in order to provide inpatient care, home care, hospice at home, day stay, family support, bereavement support, music therapy, pets as therapy, arts and crafts, everything, all of the raft of services that Little Havens provides, free of charge to those families that need it most, we have to raise every week £46,000 a week.
Right.
If you factor in our adult hospice as well, Fair Havens, which is the St Luke's equivalent, but Fair Havens is for South in Rochford and Castle Point, that figure rises to £100,000 a week because adult hospice care is more expensive. Now, so the running cost for Little Havens on its own, which is what we're focusing on here, is £2.6 million a year. Our current level of funding from the PCT, the Primary Care Trust, or statutory funding we receive, has been fixed at a level of £300,000 for about the last 8 years, and there's no change in that. So our current income that we have to fundraise for sits at 2.3 million. Now, the way that's divided up, the team that I work for, or with, I should say, the community fundraising team, individual giving team that goes into schools, colleges, churches, other education establishments, social clubs, youth groups, small businesses like hairdressers, cafes, bank branches, supermarkets, and individuals who fundraise for us, either through skydiving, running a marathon, sitting in a bath of baked beans, organising a golf day, a bake sale, whatever it might be, including groups like Rotary, lodges, Lions Round Tables, WIs, the whole gamut of different groups that make up the community as such. That's the team I work within, so individual giving, community fundraising. We have to raise about 1.1 million of that 2.3 million. So that's the kind of the pot of money that the team that I work within closely has to bring in every year just to provide the level of care and support that we do. Now, as an organisation, we're part of a wider umbrella called Together for Short Lives, who used to be Children's Hospice UK, and they lobby in Parliament on behalf of the 47 children's hospices in the UK. When we opened our doors in '98, we were the 12th. There's now 47. So our job really is not as a campaigning organisation at grassroots hospice level. We're here to provide care and support for those families and those children that need it most. So we will always apply to charitable trusts and apply to the lottery and look at every scrap of funding that we can. But essentially, we are beholden to the community, both individuals and corporate. So we have a small team of 2 corporate fundraisers and a legacy fundraiser and a trust fundraiser who work on the corporate sector, because our reach does go into Romford, Barking and Dagenham and the city. So we look at organising corporate quizzes and a corporate ball as well, and also trying to get legacy income, because it's that regular giving that you were talking about, I think earlier, Steve, which is so vital to the hospice. One-off donations are wonderful, and we're really grateful, however small or large they are. But what really helps us plan our care going forward is knowing that we're getting 10 quid a month or 50 quid a month or whatever it might be, because then we know what the shortfall is or where we need to go to make that up, if that makes sense. And we can build relationships with those donors.
Yeah. Can I just ask, why is the PCT fixed for the last 8 years, considering the amount of work that hospices do?
Yeah.
Is there any political sort of thing on this scene?
Well, it used to be about 30 grand a year, so it's included at least tenfold. And you know, part of it is historical, because adult hospices have been around historically longer than children's hospices. Yeah. What actually happens is that the government has a pot of money nationally, and it goes to all the local authorities, and their responsibility is to divide it up amongst however many hospices there are in the county. So obviously within Essex we have one children's hospice and several adult hospices. So that pot of money that Essex receive has to be fairly and equitably distributed amongst those hospices. But you know, historically, hospices have always been funded by volunteers in the community, either through direct donations or through people giving their time. So the government, you know, I don't want to look at things cynically, but the reality is that we've never had to pay out that much before, so it's always been funded by the local community, so that's how it will continue. It shouldn't be that way, because, as you rightly said, Phil, effectively, we are meeting end-of-life palliative care requirements in a way that the NHS cannot do. They don't have the resources or the expertise to do, because hospitals are all about getting people in the door and out the door as quickly as possible, patching up the broken leg or the grazed head or the broken hip, and then freeing up the bed for the next person, so they can treat the next person as quickly as possible. Hospice care is completely different. It's about spending time, providing dignity and quality of care at a time when families need it most. And hospices are in a best placed people to provide that care.
Debbie, how many families do you support at any given time?
Yeah, good question. It's Frank, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes,
Frank, at the moment, it remains fairly consistent. We're currently supporting between 140 and 150 families across Essex. Now, if you were to ask me to break those down by segment, I couldn't tell you exactly where they all are, but I can tell you there are at least 4 families in the Thurrock area as of today that we are currently working with. We have quite a lot of families in South Essex, but we have families in Colchester, in Braintree and Witton and Chelmsford, and into Romford, Barking and Dagenham and Havering as well. There are 8 beds at Little Havens, which you might think aren't a lot, But thankfully, hospice care is never about numbers or about how many children, because you'd be forgiven for thinking that only one children's hospice for the whole county, you must be snowed under, or you can't surely meet the need. The reality is, I'm pleased to say, is that the vast majority of people, and us as parents or grandparents, can expect our children and grandchildren to live to a healthy age and enjoy a normal life expectancy. So the incidence of a GP coming across a child with a life-limiting illness not expected to live to adulthood is actually not that common. But when it does happen, when children are, a family are diagnosed with a child with a life-limiting diagnosis, it's Little Havens that they'll come to. So we have 8 beds at the hospice, but we're currently supporting at any one time between 140 and 150 families. And that's through family support, through hospice at home, bereavement support, because we're also there, don't forget, not just while the family are coming for respite, for planned breaks between 5 and 7 days at a time, but we're also there, sadly, when a child's condition deteriorates and it gets to that terrible expression, but what we call the end of life stage. But we're also there for the family after a child has died. Now, I can't remember Phil and Janice and Frank, whether you went into the Woodland Suite, our bereavement suite, when you came. Did I actually take you around the bereavement suite?
Yes, you did. Yeah.
So you will know that aftercare and that care at that critical time, and indeed providing an opportunity for families to grieve and reconcile their emotions with their child in a room, a beautiful room, it's like a child's bedroom, after their child has died, to spend anything up to a week with their child, where they've got access to professionals, bereavement support, family support, they can cry, they can be however they want to be, is vital. And they can't do that in hospital. There isn't the resources, the time, the expertise, the dignity afforded to them, and they certainly can't do that at home for all sorts of practical reasons. So we're there before, during, for however many years they need us, and after. And there are many families I know that are still coming back, receiving sibling support, family support and counselling several years after their child has died.
Is there a possibility, like with the financial part, to raise like money in charity events at school?
Yeah, sorry, is that Charon's daughter I'm talking to?
Yeah.
What's your name?
Maya.
Malia?
Yeah.
I think I got. What, can I ask you what school you go to? I can't quite recognise your blazer there. Where are you from? Which school?
Grace Convent.
Sorry, Gray's Convent School.
Yeah. Okay,
cool. Well, the short answer, Malia, is absolutely. Part of my job is to go into schools to say thank you, to encourage, to facilitate and inspire some of the natural exuberance and enthusiasm that guys your age, and when I say guys and girls your age, have for the community around you. And I was only at a school in Billericay on Friday morning who had chosen us as their charity of the year. They've already raised £1,000 for us, so I was able to go along. I took our butterfly mascot. We've got a giant butterfly called Betsy that we take into assemblies into primary schools, not so much for secondary schools because they're older, but we work closely with schools who do one-off events for us or who might choose Little Havens to be their charity for the year. I will also invite student councils and charity committees to come to Little Havens, and I will extend that invitation to your school because on the 21st of November we've got an open day specifically for schools. We did it in March and we had almost 300 school children from across 22 schools across the borough that came, most of which were already fundraising for Little Havens, some of which were considering it, but they wanted to see the hospice. The families and the children that would normally be there, we arranged for them to go home because our children don't live at Little Havens all year round, don't forget. They come for holiday, they come for respite or planned breaks, so the whole family gets a break and they all come and stay free of charge and they all have a great time. We look after them, we don't make any charge for that, so that's where some of the costs come in. But on that open day for schools, the children were able to come with their teachers without having to disturb any of our families because they weren't there, and they could see the amazing bedrooms, because they're not hospital rooms, they're bedrooms with Xboxes and widescreen TVs and play equipment and beautiful gardens and patio areas, a swimming pool, wonderful play equipment in the gardens that you would have seen on the DVD, swings that are accessible for wheelchair users, a roundabout that we're putting in a couple of months' time in the gardens at Little Havens that's accessible for wheelchair users at a cost of £18,000 because it's all bespoke equipment. So the answer, that's a very long answer to a simple question, in that absolutely schools can get involved, and more importantly than that, we need schools to get involved to help fundraising for Little Havens, and it's a great way of children and young people recognising and supporting other children, because the children that we care for are no different to any of the children in our schools across Thurrock and across Essex. They're exactly the same as you guys. They want to play, go to the park, have fun, be naughty, and do some really cool things as well. And at Little Havens, they can do that. So we need your help, and I'd love to come into your school and do an assessment.
All right.
Okay. So what I'll do, you know, maybe if you send me a contact detail of who to speak to, or you have a chat with your teacher at school, then let's try and make that happen. Or we can invite the school. You can come down with some of the student council and have a look around the hospice on Monday the 21st of November. All I need is an email address, and I can send someone.
I can pass it, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, what was that, Sharon? I missed that.
I can pass the detail for her, yeah, everything, yeah.
That would be great. But what I wanted to ask folks, just to bring it back to Rotary, I've been part of the hospice for a number of years, for about 16 years in different capacities. And I've had the pleasure of being in Rotary clubs, hosting Rotary visits down to the hospice, giving presentations and going along to say thank you for donations. You guys are a fundamental part of our funding, not just financially, but also helping us at events, with marshalling, with maybe the odd bucket collection. I know how busy clubs are at Christmas time in particular. And I'm not sure if Thurrock Gateway do a sleigh collection to you guys every year or not.
No, we don't, no.
Right. But what we would ask is that when you have a meet to discuss about how you distribute your funds, I would make a direct ask to you guys to say that we are your children's hospice, having seen and heard all that you have so far tonight. Rest assured that the money that we spend, that we receive from you, will be spent supporting local families. As an organisation, we run very efficiently. We have, across both of our hospices and out in the community in our 23 charity shops, we have almost 1,000 volunteers that save the charity £2.5 million a year. And the reason why I say that is that I don't want you guys to think that we're sometimes it's the perception with hospices is that they might be cash rich because everybody always supports their local hospice, don't they? But the reality is they'll only do that if we keep saying thank you and getting in front of people like yourself and reminding you of the need and how important it is for you to keep doing that. Because as you've heard from the numbers, we aren't government funded, we receive a small amount. The vast majority of our income comes from the corporate sector or the individuals, the community. And Rotary, as far as I can see over the years, is very much at the heart of the community. And that's exactly what Little Havens do.
Yeah. I definitely would say on behalf of the club, Peter, that some money will be coming your way.
Wonderful.
Not sure how much, not sure exactly when, but we will be contributing to your great cause. Absolutely wonderful.
Bless you, Phil. And what I'd be happy to do, and I would welcome any difficult questions or people challenging us about how we might spend our donations, I would direct you to the website, which is havenshospices.org.uk. There's a great section in there called the Impact Report, and it's a very simple pie chart. For those of you that like pie charts and numbers and bars, it tells you where we spend our money, how we spend it, the impact that it has on in the community locally, and there's some examples there of and stories and local families that we supported. So very transparent. I would encourage you to do that. I did just very briefly, I'm conscious of time, I don't want to keep people any longer than I have already, Phil. If I wanted to just briefly share the reason why I'm so passionate about the hospice, and I can't remember whether I shared this with you guys when you came down, but I mentioned a moment ago I've been part of the organisation, the charity, for 16 years. I was a patient in the late 90s. I was diagnosed with lymphatic cancer, lymphoma. I was living in Leigh-on-Sea, not far from where I am now, and to cut a long story short, I'd had 2 transplants, including a bone marrow transplant. Every time I'd had treatment, my cancer responded to chemo, only to be followed by a fairly swift relapse. And I was referred in late 1998 for end-of-life care, having been given a terminal prognosis by my doctor's advance. and I was just a young man of 34 at that time, with children who were aged just 3 and 4. My children are now 21 and 22 and graduating, and one boy, my eldest son's just started work with Facebook, so I'm very proud of his achievements, and my daughter too. But when I was seriously ill, I was referred for end-of-life care by the Macmillan nurses at Fairhaven's, our adult hospice, and I was given care and support at the most challenging time of my life. Against the odds, and that's another talk for another time, I went on to make a complete recovery. And in order to say thank you and celebrate my recovery, if you like, I'm celebrating next year running 10 London marathons. I cycled from John O'Groats to Land's End back in 2007. I've run numerous half marathons and cycled in Vietnam and China. Not just joking aside because I like to share what I've achieved, but actually it's much more important than that. It's about the hospice, and I'm proud to say that as an individual, over and above my job, because they said we better give this guy a job, he's not going away, so I started volunteering and giving something back. I then went to work for Cancer Research UK. I came back to the hospice in 2010 and took on the role as a fundraiser for the last 6 years. So over and above my full-time position fundraising for Little Havens, I'm also proud to say I've raised over 50 grand as a volunteer. Now that's my motivation and my passion because of what the hospice did for me and my children and my family at that time. But even without that, having seen Liz's story, watched the DVD, and hopefully with a little of what I've shared tonight, it's a bit of a no-brainer about why it's so important that we can continue to count on the support of the local community. So I hope you don't mind me sharing that with you, but I think it was important for you to know.
Yeah, no, that's really great for you to share that with us, Peter. That's really gives people like yourself a little bit of an insight as to why you do what you do and why it's such a passionate part of your life.
Thank you, and I would encourage you as a group to continue obviously your support with St Luke's, and I know Rotary is involved with many other local causes, and that's wonderful. And in fact, I think we are at next week, I believe, the Thurrock Gateway Business Awards, although not me personally, but one of our corporate fundraisers is there, and that's sponsored by Archant, the media group, because I think Little Havens are one of 3 charities that are being supported by businesses across the Thames Gateway at that awards ceremony, which recognises excellence in business. So that's just really incidental. But yeah, so no, and so it's great that you you're looking at supporting the hospice, and I would extend that invitation to any other club members that wanted to come down and see for themselves what to do.
Lovely, thanks, Peter. Would anybody else like to ask Peter any questions?
No.
No.
No, it's fine.
No, I think you've covered a lot of stuff there, Peter. That's really, really great. Really great.
Can I make one quick 30-second plug, if I may?
Absolutely, carry on.
On the 8th of October, which is a Saturday night, at and this is on our website, and I can send you a link, Phil, but at the Pontlands Park Hotel, Great Baddow, in a marquee there. Some of you might know the venue. It's a lovely venue.
I know Pontlands very well. Daughter got married there.
Well, in the marquee there, one of our Little Havens dads, Darren Cooper, who's a volunteer, whose son died at Little Havens some 10 years ago, Lewis Cooper. He was so overwhelmed and inspired by what Little Havens did for his family and the care that his daughter continues to receive in the family as a whole, that he's raised thousands for us at the golf days and volunteering, giving speeches in the community. Last year he organised a ball. He's doing it again on the 8th of October. I'm helping to support him with that because it's all in aid of Little Havens. So on the 8th of October at Pontlands Park, it's a community ball. So it's not got this corporate glitzy feel. It is black tie, but there's a welcome drink on arrival, a fabulous 3-course meal, table, magicians, a charity casino actually being hosted by our friends at Billericay Rotary Club, who are providing that casino, and a band that are playing for not a lot, and a fabulous evening, basically. It would be lovely to see a table of Rotarians there. At the moment, I don't know of a Rotary Club that's coming along. It would be really lovely if maybe some members from Thurrock Gateway Rotary. I realise it's a bit off the beaten track for some of you, but if you are free on that Saturday evening, it's 55 quid a ticket, and that's pretty good value considering what you get, because you'd be paying 80, 90, £100 plus in the city. So that's it. If any of you are free on Saturday the 8th of October, you can book online, or you can just book via the office. And I'll email you, Phil, if I may, a link, if you wouldn't mind sending that out, because that's in less than 3 weeks' time.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Peter. I'll do that. Definitely. Okay, great stuff.
Well, thanks for the opportunity again. If anyone's got any last questions, otherwise, yeah, it's been really good to chat to you all.
Anybody? No?
Just thank you for the opportunity to hear exactly what you do. It's inspirational. Thanks.
Bless you. Thank you. Well, we can't do it. We can't keep caring unless people keep giving. So it's down to you guys, really. So thank you.
Many thanks for your time again, Peter. That's really great. I'll be
in touch, and I'll drop you an email. Right. Thanks, folks. Have a good evening.
Take care.
Thanks,
Bye.
Peter. Thank you.
Bye.